let's then start. Reverend Fathers and dear colleagues and dear all, it is a great joy always to work with pieces by Saint John Koukouzeles. It's something of wonderful, it's something so high and so beautiful. And especially when you can combine it with some very beloved saints as Saint Dimitrios and with some very beloved places and monasteries like the Putna Holy Monastery. So we will try to see this now in a while. The teacher of teachers and the master of masters, as he has been acknowledged repeatedly in Byzantine and post-Byzantine musical manuscripts, Saint John Koukouzeles, has been strongly appreciated also in the Moldavian monasteries. And he is the most copied one among the composers which express themselves in Greek language. So he's the number one there. You can see here a plate with different other names of kalophonic composers, but by far he has the share of the lion, as we say. And we can acknowledge this by studying the catalogs done mainly in the last century by prestigious Romanian musicologists such as Titus Moisescu and Gheorghe Ciobanu and many others. So we are very, very grateful to all these wonderful musicologists who worked in very difficult times and prepared a very sound basis for further research. So around 60% of the kalophonic mathemata for various feasts over the liturgical year found in manuscripts of the Putna Music School, like the Iași Anthology and the Dobrovoț Anthology, Limonos 258, are compositions by Saint John Koukouzeles. So I just went through these catalogs and checked whenever I saw the name Koukouzeles. You can see he is very frequently present here with different kalophonic mathemata, either kalophonic stichera or anagrammatismi. And this fact alone testifies the great appreciation for the oeuvre of Saint John Koukouzeles in Moldavia. So this is the alphabetic index of the Dobrovoț anthology of the Putna school. Among the Koukouzelian mathemata, we have chosen the anagrammatismus apolave ton thaumaton tasiasis kathorosa, rejoice by seeing the miraculous healings, which is one of the two mathemata in honor of Saint Dimitrios of Thessaloniki copied in the Putna manuscripts. The second one being Frurison Paneldox, a so-called epivoli. So these, as far as I could see until now, are the two mathemata for Saint Dimitrios found, generally speaking, in the Putnian anthologies. The military saints were very beloved through the history of Christianity. In Moldavia, their immense popularity is also attested by the famous fresco from Potrouți, with a cavalcade of military saints conducted by the Archangel Michael and leading to the Holy Cross. They have been immensely popular also in Byzantine times. There is a beautiful monography about warrior saints in Byzantium, showing that they had really a very special position there, and they were invoked in order to help the Byzantine emperors in war cases. I can show you if some time will be available at the end. I can show you that monography of Christoph Wolter. Dimitrios, the patron of Thessaloniki, was one of the most well-known of those saints, the military saints, and he is mentioned also in the Chronicle of Moldavia by Grigore Ureche. And this in connection with the victory of Saint Stephen the Great, the voivode, in 1497 at Cadrul Cosminului, and the chronographer states that the battle was won with the help of God, the prayers, the intercession of the Holy Theotokos, and the great martyr Dimitrios. și cu ruga precestii și Sfântului Marelui Mucenic Dimitrie, since the victory was exactly on the feast day of Saint Dimitrios, 26th of October. So if we go now to see the so-called Putna Ermologion, the oldest one with mathemata we have from this school so far, we can see in fact that here, the piece starts here at this point, we can see that it's an anagrammatismos of Saint John Koukouzeles. And this manuscript, as far as I could see, was the Vorlage, was the model of copying the other manuscripts. So we began now the work with this manuscript, and then we compared it with Limonos, Apolave, here. It's very close to the previous manuscript, and also with Iași manuscript, Apolave. We also have a precious transnotation in the staff of our piece by Marin Ionescu, which has been published in the first transcripta volume of the series Izvoarele Muzicii Românești, the sources of Romanian music. I want to thank a lot Father Avram for all this material. So it was very, very helpful. Along with the manuscripts you saw before, I also worked with this mathematarion, which you can see here, the Zakynthos number 7. This is a very important manuscript. We searched a lot for its chronology, and you can see here, even I have the end of the 16th century, but during the last weeks, I rediscovered that it's an autograph by Grigoris Bounis Aliatis, in fact. He has some pieces and he says to Grapheos, and we started also some paleographical work in order to identify the scribe. The manuscript also contains some works by Ioasaf Neos Koukouzeles, and this is why the previous catalographers thought that it must be from the end of the 16th century. Finally, it seems that Ioasaf, the new Koukouzeles, lived earlier, lived in the first half of the 15th century, because this is a very, very important manuscript. And as we could see during the last years by a very careful comparison with Hormuzius' Mathematarion, it was the manuscript from which Hormuzius made the transcriptions into the new method. So it's a very important manuscript, which anyhow should be taken into account when studying kalophonic mathemata. Here you can see also Hormuzius' autograph, Metochion Panagiou Tafu 728, Metochion of the Holy Sepulchre. And of course, it's a long exegesis, a slow exegesis, and broad transcription into the new method. The piece, the Anagrammatismos, is based on an old sticheron which begins with the incipit Efreno en Kyriou Polis Thessaloniki. Here you can see it from a beautiful manuscript from the Holy Mountain, from Kutlumuseu, from the middle of the 14th century, Efreno en Kyriou. And you can see also the piece with the transnotation into staff notation. Our Anagrammatismos starts from here, from column 8, Apolave ton thaumaton tasiasis kathorosa. So it starts with this verse, and then it goes on with Efreno en Kyriou Polis Thessaloniki, and also uses some other, but not all, the verses of this old sticheron. So here you can see the text also in this way. It has the old sticheron from which Saint John Koukouzeles takes his material. The Anagrammatismos starts from here with Apolave ton thaumaton tasiasis kathorosa. Today this sticheron is sung as the doxastikon of the Liti of Saint Dimitrios. In procession it is sung. And Saint Dimitrios is extremely popular also in Greece and throughout the Balkans and among the Slavs until today. Here you can see some photos from the big litany on 25th of October from some previous years, and some beautiful photographs of litanies. This is on Via Egnatia on the main boulevard of Thessaloniki with the icon, and here behind with the relics of Saint Demetrius. And you can really understand that it's God who glorifies his saint. It's not something which just human beings can give to other human beings. It's really, he is glorified by the Lord. And there is a very beautiful recent book about the most recent wonders and healings by Saint Demetrius. He's a great saint. And this is what the text is speaking about. Here you can see απόλαβε των θαυμάτων τασιάσεις καθορώσα εφραίνου εν κυρίου πόλης Θεσσαλονίκη. And you can see all these very characteristic repetitions of the anagrammatisms of the kalophonic style. Αγάλου και χόρευε πόλης πίστηλα προφορούσα Δημήτριον των πανένδοξων εγκόλπης κατέχουσα ως θησαυρών. And then on the words εφραίνου, which means enjoy and rejoice, εφραίνου and κυρίου, rejoice in the Lord, jubilate, be delighted and dance, we have the zone of the climax, the zenith of the piece. Αγάλου τερ που χόρευε, and then we are going into the nadir, the lowest point of the piece, on the words των βαρβάρων καταράσσοντα τα θράση, and from this E, from this phoneme E, begins the kratima, tiriri, and here, in column 37, we have also the lowest point of the piece. So it's both on the climax and on the nature of the piece, we have word paintings. In this case, also with the use of the chromatic scale, the plagal of the second mode. And the piece ends after the kratima. We have again, like a coda, we have ton varvaron ta thrasi, the verse we just heard before the kratima. So when starting to look for the music, the very music of such a wonderful piece, we as musicologists, of course, we can do different things. I tried first with a transnotation on a copy of the Zakynthia manuscript. First, I tried to transnotate it because we have this signature. I transnotated it a fifth higher than you see here, re la. But afterwards I realized that it cannot work like that. I will show you why. So usually when we see this signature here, this one, we start in our musicological transcriptions from A, isn't it? So I have here my Kanonaki, so if you don't mind, we can make also a bit of practice also in preparing our round table tomorrow. If you want, you can sing together with me. Oops. So here is Kanonaki. So usually when seeing this exoprotos, so we would start a piece like that from re, la, and so on. However, when studying carefully also the exegesis, the slow exegesis, we see that Koukouzeles has pa as a base. So this means that everything goes a fifth lower. And if I want to make the ananeanes from here, then I would arrive to this sonority. Re, do, si, with a flat. Si, la, sol, re, in order to keep the same sonority. But however, when going on with singing the exegesis, we can see that this does not match because we have here a cadence on zo. And in fact, as Maria Alexandru says, some of the Putnian manuscripts indicate that it must be something like a sort of protovaris, this mode, although you cannot guess anything from the signature. Look at here, it's echos protos. So you would start on A. But however, if you look at the voice of the tradition, you see you have to start on pa, and not on pa, which makes, which makes like agia. So it goes like that. I want by this just to show how important this is. It is when we try to deal with the old manuscripts, also to look at the slow exegesis if available, or whatsoever exegesis if available, because not all the chants and many chants of the repertory of the Putna school, of course, have not been transcribed into the new method, but a part of them, those which belong to many of the kalophonic masters, have been transcribed. So we have this opportunity, and then this helps us a lot to go in a safe path, because otherwise really we can come at a completely different result. So this was the key in order to say, okay, we have to transcribe it from Re, to do it like that. Afterwards, we tried to make a collection of sources, as we do usually when working with pieces which we want to understand more deeply, and see what happens also with this piece in the Putnian Anthologia. So here we have the Hermologion, the so-called Hermologion of Putna from the first half of the 15th century. And then we have Limonos, the Dobrovol's manuscript, and the Iași anthology, and the Zakynthien one. The Zakynthien, we can see, and I did this work for the entire Anagrammatismos. I think you got it in, there was a link in our program, and there you can find the entire piece in a collation of sources. So you can look through it. It's very impressive. There is almost no changes, almost identical in all the three manuscripts, these, and then also very, very few, just very tiny, little tiny differences with the Zakynthien manuscript. So in fact, when we wanted to sing this piece in honor of Saint Demetrius from one of the Putna anthologies, it's the same if we would study it from Zakynthos. And this is why, I mean, it's very a very fine combination of sources, so that we can go also to the basic rhythmical and metrical and intervallic structure, but also to see what about the slow mellows at least. So here we have a microsyntactical analysis with identifying the different formulas. And going on, we have the slow exegesis. And here is a sort of generative analysis of the exegesis, which tries to understand how this slow interpretation works. So we look at it on the axis of time. Here we have the beats per syllable, A, 1 syllable, and then Po, it's 6 syllables, and La, 2, and so on. And then here we have, on the staff, we have the melodic contour and the structural notes. The structural notes are those in white rhombs. And then this oblique line shows, you can see here the stepwise movement. And this dotted legati show the persistence of some structural notes also beyond some other sounds here in between. And then we have the ambitus in the exegesis per syllable. So here, this syllable has the prime. And then here, this Po goes from Pa to D, Re, So it's 3 voices. That means the interval of a fourth, and so on. It works like that. And this is the ambitus per phrase. So this type of analysis aims to understand, aims at understanding more deeply how this craft of exegesis works, how it works, how it can be done, how it can be applied, what the principles are, and if it's truly an interpretation of the notation or its compositional device. We wanted to see also this. So I hope that we will have tomorrow also more time to have a closer look at different issues of this transcription. If you want, let's sing together just this first phrase. So we have can see this very beautiful Byzantine melody as received by tradition. And there are some specific characteristics of Byzantine melodics as this predominantly stepwise movement, and then resting in some of the structural notes, the main importance of the tetrachord also in the exegesis, and so on. So, of course, we are asking, is there only this way of singing the piece, only in a very slow way? Something else which we can do is this rhythmical approach, which is based on research conducted by Arvanitis, and Arvanitis on his turn is grounded on the research conducted by Simon Karas. There is, however, also some very interesting research conducted in the 80s, 70s, and then in the late 90s by researchers like Ewald Jammers and Jan van Biesen, and then the sisters Irina and Marina Školnik, and all of them tried to find out about the basic binary structure of Byzantine notation. They began with hymnologic chants, and Arvanitis expanded it also towards other kinds of chants. So this, what you see here is a rhythmic transcription, which is based on the research conducted by the scholars I mentioned before. And I also tried then to see at a higher level how those meters can be grouped 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. And this I did it inspired by Father Abraham's approaches about quaternary basic structure of the melody. So if you want, let's look carefully at this beginning, and I hope tomorrow, God willing, we can have a closer look at the entire piece. So just let's sing the beginning here. So here we have some very different sonority which emerges if it were to compare it with what we saw before here. And what is the main thing? We don't say that it's not beautiful, it can be very beautiful, but it's quite alien to the profile of Byzantine melodics we receive through the tradition. This is the main point. And this is why also in Greece, people don't accept this kind of transcriptions because they say, I cannot recognize any sonority here. It sounds too alien. So what I personally think about this way of transcription is that this is a phase of metrophonia. Metrophonia, the basic meter, the basic rhythm, the basic intervallic structure. And then by the oral tradition, they had to develop it according to what they learned, what they heard, and what they had as ability to expand these different theses, which, by the way, can be identified piece by piece. It's like in a mosaic. Each piece can be identified in varia, anavasis, varia, tromicoparacalesma. So here is a sort of old rapisma, anavasis, and then antikenoma, and paraclitiki with psiphiston. And this is a very beloved cadence of the kalophonic repertory with the varia and ligisma. So this again, you can find the transcription of the entire piece in the drive I sent you, the address. I will show it also in a while so you can access it if you want. Of course, we would like also to know how people were learning this kind of pieces. And we know from many theoreticians that they had 3 steps. It was metrophonia, and then it was paralahi, and then it was something which characterized the perfect singer, which later on is specifically labeled as the melos. So if it were to try to find out what these 3 steps were for our piece, and this is just the beginning, then we could start with metrophonia, what we just saw before. It would be like that. And then there is also another phase of metrophonia, which is called metrophonia dis paralagis. This consists only by stepwise movements, and then we have also applied a joint to each descending or ascending voice, the corresponding signatures. So let's sing once, and please feel free to join. I'm sorry that we cannot hear each other. Just let's try to sing together with the text. So here, in order to get the sound which we want, which we know from the exegesis, we have to have this, like in Agia. If it were to make protos, we would have this. However, we know that they went step by step to find the lowest note. So we can, in order to get to the sonority which we want here with the bluish color, we have to say, and then going on, which can be identified at this point with ananes, and then we go on for the next step. Neanes bekaneanes, neaye ananes, neaye ananes. And so we prepare the sonority of this piece. I must confess that this Ichos Protos, like Protovaris, is something which I just become aware right by working with this piece, and it needs a lot of work because until now we just worked with the old notation, and we just transcribed from A all these pieces, 1/5 higher, and then another sonority comes out. And here you can see, then this was a preparation for the exegesis, the slow exegesis we can see again. So I would like to argue for the point that when we try to study the old manuscripts and there is an available exegesis, anyhow we have to take it into account. Either we want to stay at this, or we want to try to make different kind of approaches or finding some briefer types of exegesis. I think we have to start by studying very, very seriously the available slow exegesis in order to get into this mood and this characteristics and this profile of Byzantine melodics, in order not to just stay at the point of the melodic skeleton. I think this is correct, or maybe some other similar approach. It seems to me it works very fine. It really naturally falls into these binary sections. It really works very beautiful. But the point is, what I am going to name this. Is this only the skeleton, or do I think that this was an existing melody which they chanted the lecture in the church? I don't believe that this was a final product. I think this is just a preliminary phase of the piece, like that. But these are issues we can discuss also tomorrow in more detail. Well, the general ambitus, according to the old method, is this. It's the scene. And here we have composed 6. You see, usually in the exegesis, the general ambitus is expanded. And then we have several modes which occur. The first mode, but then also combined with agia and producing this very interesting varis sonority with the piece has many cadences on zo. And I think they were able to recognize from the cadences, from the profile of the melody, which mode to choose, whether to choose it like proto-sexo, or to choose this variant, which goes, and below it goes with agia, it does not go again. What we call the trochos. It does not go like that. But you cannot recognize it from the initial martyria. You have to know very well the repertory in order to know from which note to start, because Koukouzeles has also exegesis of the old mathemata which start from A. So it's a deep knowledge there which comes from the profile of the melodic movement. And something also very interesting, we have a modulation to the plagal of the second mode with nenano. For the nature of the piece, the lowest point of the piece, it goes. And then when it comes back to the first, there is no phthora at all. You just, again, from the oral tradition, have to know when it goes back to the first mode. It's just one phthora, which is nenano, nothing else. And then after a long while, we have a martyria of the first mode, I guess, in some of the manuscripts. So you really have to rely very heavily on the oral tradition. So for a while, I think we should stop here, and I hope very much that we can go on with the discussion tomorrow and to have a closer look at the exegesis and to see what a great art it is, and what an infinite almost variety it displays for places of the piece which look very similarly in the old notation, to the point like these sequences, parallelogies. And they are interpreted in a very beautiful, very elegant manners, different manners when they occur in the piece. So it's a really it's a top art to this art of exegesis, and I think we really have to study it very, very seriously in order to also to try to attempt to describe and to transcribe the old repertory, also of the Putna Anthologia and all whatsoever other old repertories. So thank you so much for that, for being patient and attentive. I would like to ask you whether there is any question for this presentation. I will just close it for a while. So is there any question for that?
If I may?
Yes, of course, Father, please.
Okay, so first I want to make a little observation. You said that I usually do the exegesis note by note in Arvanitis style, Mr. Arvanitis. I never did this with long papadic. I'm very aware that this genre requires a different approach. So I believe here is better suitable the long exegesis, not the short one. This is very important, but just for this repertoire, because I think you agree that there are also hymnologia repertoires or stichiraria where it can be applied note per syllable interpretation. We'll see. From it's just this. I want to make it very clear that I never tried to interpret the long Papadic melody in this short exegesis.
Okay. Well, this is very important to know. Of course, I think each repertory has been approached appropriately, and we have to find out what this appropriately means. I think. Because sometimes we can assume that only the long exegesis has been written down, whereas maybe some short exegesis existed but never was written down at older times. So I think we have to be very careful with the repertory we are working with.
I think you are aware about Manuel Chrysafi's treatise about Phtoras, you know, where he specifies very clear that there are several interpretations to the same text, to the same pneumatic notation. If it's not clear, I don't have right now the page and the quote, but I will bring it tomorrow. I will make it. I'll prepare it. He clearly states that there are several kinds of interpretations of the same musical text.
Yes. I think
not just long. I am very aware that it is a very good exegesis, also the long one, but we must accept also some other kinds of exegesis, not just this one. No.
Well, this is a big discussion. This is really a very big discussion, and we can see also tomorrow.
Yes.
About this, and I think it depends a lot on the repertory. But I think the salient point is the profile of Byzantine melodics, because if the result is something which nobody never heard, it can be beautiful, but it sounds strange to our ears. And what means to our ears? 2 years of some educated psalter and so on, then at least we should be careful with advancing such kinds of transcriptions. Because there is a certain profile of Byzantine melodics, which I think that it's worthwhile studying in depth to see this kind of stepwise movement, this playing around some structural notes and so on. So I think if our proposal of transcriptions goes away from that, and the final result is something which sounds very different from what is familiar to the ears of the bearers of this tradition, of the authentic singers. So then I think we have to go on searching and searching. But is there any other question about this? No.
May I again?
Yes.
I don't want to be just the only one to make comments here, so maybe some other person. Okay, I had a look on the kratema of this analysis you sent us.
Yeah.
But of course, this is for tomorrow. We'll have more time to discuss this thing.
Yes.
I saw there a shorter kind of exegesis, or I'm wrong, in kratemas.
No, yes.
A little shorter, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes. It is, exactly. It functions in a different way there, and sometimes it's even one-to-one. I mean, one old sign and one sign in the exegesis. Yes, definitely. It's like we would say today hymnologic style, and then there the gap, to put it like that, between the old notation and the new is it's just it can be bridged up very easily. And especially with the study of these two manuscripts, I mean, the Zakynthos 7 and the Hormuzious's exegesis, because we know now that he used this manuscript for his exegesis, it's very enlightening for these themes.
Mm.
Yes, yes, but it's another style there, Gratima. It sounds differently. It has also some other theses, some other formulas. It functions in another way, and that for sure notation could serve also to codify short melodies and also long melodies, but you have to know each how to approach it. In other words, as Mr. Thomas Apostolopoulos put it, it's a sort of idiomatic use of the notation. So the same iton and oligon and oxia. Sorry, can't you hear me? Or? So the same use of oligon and doxia and petastia and so on can be interpreted in different ways according to the genre of the piece. So it can be a short exegesis for the hermologic style, and then an argosyndomon for the sticheraric, or a long for the sticheraric, and then a very long with some own dynamics for the papadic, these kalophonic melodies. And again, if we say papadic, it's not all the papadics are the same, because also in the old anthologies, we have some older pieces which might be shorter. Some kekragari and so on, which we understand, or some psalmody, which you might understand that it's not that heavy kalophonic style. So for sure, we cannot apply the same sort of large exegesis. So I think it's a lot around there to study in depth.